Welcome to Facility Files. My name is Elizabeth Ignatowicz. We're just going to keep rolling. And today I've got with us Alex. He is a subject matter expert in roofing. Alex, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us how long you've been in the industry?
Well, my name's Alex Leone. I'm with Roofing USA. I have been in commercial roofing for about 8 years now, but I've been in the construction industry since I was 18, so well over 24 years now. And yes, I'm old, I know. Thank you. I got into commercial roofing a couple years prior to COVID, obviously. And it was just an industry that I wasn't sure about when I got into it. And it just turned out to be an industry that I just fell in love with. And I just love being on roofs and helping people with their roof problems.
I feel like that's facilities too. Everyone just falls into it and then they end up
Yes.
loving it and staying.
Yes, it happened to be a huge coincidence.
So let's get into the nitty gritty. What types of roofs are you going to find on commercial buildings? Can you take us through the different types of roofs that you see?
In commercial roofing, obviously, in commercial buildings, you're going to see so many different types of roofing. I mean, especially depends on when the buildings were built, of course. I mean, you have a lot of older buildings that would have your asphalt and gravel roofs or your built-up roof systems. Then you have newer buildings that may still use that system, or may use a modified system, or what we used to call a roll roofing system back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Nowadays, you're going to find more of a thermoplastic type roof system, which is a TPO or a PVC. And then you have obviously your other companies, like, you have a fiber type roof system or Duralast, the higher end roofs. But nowadays, you really do find a lot of different types of roofs. Obviously, everybody's moving more to the TPOs just because it's more energy efficient. It's a greener roof, obviously, for buildings, less toxic chemicals, less smell. But still, there still are companies that are doing the old school roofing, and they're still good roof systems.
Can you explain the differences in those?
So the asphalt and gravel roof is basically what it's called, asphalt and gravel. So it's hot tar, kettles, mops, and everything like that. Your built-up roof system uses hot tar and felts that they literally built up. They put hot tar down, then layers of felt, and they built it up, and then they put gravel over that as well. Your modified roof systems, you have different ones. You have a hot mop system where they can obviously roll it over with a hot mop and then roll the modified over that. They have a torch down system, which is basically a roll of roofing that you literally put a torch to it and slightly melt it down. And as you roll it out, it adheres to the underlayment. Now, it sounds easy. It takes a lot of skill to actually do these things. It's not just a quick explanation like that.
Right.
And then nowadays, like I said, you get into your more membranes now, is what we're calling your EPM, your rubber roofing, your TPO, your thermoplastic roofing, your PVC roofings, which come in big 5, 10, or 12-foot rolls by 100. And those obviously take labor to install, but it's much less labor intensive. They weld the sheets to each other, they mechanically fasten to the deck, so it's less labor intensive. And it's a much more cleaner install than the old fashioned roofing.
Let's talk about the lives of these roofs. Can you explain like how long these roofs should be lasting?
Well, obviously, every roof has a lifespan. That's known. The old roofs that were built, I mean, I'm talking 50s, 60s, maybe even older than that. They used the old asphalt and gravel system. Those systems are still in some buildings still really good now, 50, 60 years later. They use different chemicals, of course, in those days that EPA won't allow you to use nowadays, such as, asbestos and things like that made it last. Those roofs were virtually bulletproof. Any roof that gives you, say, a 20-year warranty, you expect it to live those 20 years. But it doesn't matter if you have a 5-year warranty or a 30-year warranty. If you don't maintain your roof, the warranty doesn't really mean anything. Warranty is there to help you on manufacturer defects or if something happens, not at your own fault. But if you're not maintaining your roof, it's just like a car vehicle. You never change your oil and you have 30,000 miles on it, you have no oil, then your engine seizes. Well, you want warranty. Well, there's no warranty. It's the same thing. It
So
doesn't
I have a
matter what
funny
we give
story. I did that with my first car.
you. A lot of people do.
So my dad passed away when I was younger, and I grew up without a father figure. Didn't know that I needed to get my oil changed. I went to college in Florida and drove my car back and forth a lot. My uncle did change it one time when I stopped to have him check my tires. He yelled at me that my tires were bald, and he was scared for me to drive home to South Carolina. I did it anyway. But that was the only time in 3 years that I had had that car that I had my oil changed. And by my sophomore year in college, I blew up my engine. So,
See?
lesson learned for me, but I love that you said that. What
Oh
are
yeah.
some maintenance ways to take care of your roofs? Like, what are some preventative maintenance, or what should you be doing?
I tell everybody that the best way for you to be proactive on your roof is just get eyes on your roof. Quarterly, monthly, every 6 months, just get somebody on your roof to do a walkthrough.
And what should you be looking for?
And you should be looking debris on the roof, number one. How dirty is your roof? Why is it getting so dirty? What is causing all this organic debris, all this organic growth on my roof? Okay, is it the trees around us? Okay, we got to prune them. We got to clean everything up. Look for metal, pieces of metal on your roof that shouldn't be there that will cause a puncture on your roof.
Like
Look
the
at,
HVAC units, if your tech
yes,
leaves the door open, that's
I'm
happened
not
a
I'm
lot.
not blaming anybody, but I see a
Well, it
lot of
happens.
screws on the roof.
It happens a lot.
It does. You see little pieces of metal. You see razor blades from the utility knives. You see screws. You
Mhm.
see straps. Anything that has anything sharp on it can, even though they say it's puncture proof, nothing's puncture proof. It can
Right.
cause damage on your roof. And by walking around, and you don't have to be a roof expert, you can see if something doesn't belong on the roof. You can see if something doesn't look right on the roof. And it doesn't take nothing to take a picture and send it to somebody like me and say, hey, Alex, should this be like this? And I'll tell you flat out, yes or no. Let me go take a look at it for you, or make sure it's not doing this or that. So visual inspections are the most important things. Now, if you want to get into more detailed inspections, you would get somebody who knows what they're doing on a roof. You'd hire somebody, call somebody like me, and you want to go there and do a detailed roof inspection where we check all your seams, we check all your membrane to make sure there's no punctures anywhere, no slices. We check all your penetrations, make sure your sealants are all good.
Yeah.
A lot of it is visual, but you also use a probe to make sure that your seams and everything are good. So it all depends. You can do a lot, but the best thing, just go up there, take a look. If it doesn't look right, call somebody.
Now, let's talk about repairs because inevitably you're going to have to make some type of repairs or patches. What kind of repairs do you recommend? And at what point do you recommend no longer repairing versus just it needs to replace?
So again, it depends on the condition of your roof and how you maintained it. If you got a building and you installed a roof in 1995 and your roof has been awesome to you and you've never had a leak, and here we are in 2024 and all of a sudden you're getting some leaks, but you've never had anybody on your roof. Now I have to go on your roof and take a look at a roof that's over 20 years old, that's never been touched or looked at, and see what's going on. And a lot of times you go up on the roof and you take pictures and you come back to the landlord or building owner or whoever and show them these pictures of their roof, and they're astonished of the poor condition of their roof. They have mold growing everywhere. They got tree limbs growing everywhere. It's just all wrinkled. So that right there, it doesn't matter what you do if you don't, again, go back to the maintenance part of it. You're not going to be able to repair certain things. And then what happens now is you call a reputable company. They say, well, unfortunately, we're just not able to repair this because we can't guarantee that we're going to. So they resort to calling lesser people to, and I'd hate to say that, but a company that's not qualified to do repairs on the roof. And then they get even more damage.
Yeah.
And then now you're beyond repair or help, because a lot of times you can repair a portion of it or re-roof a portion of it instead of repairing everything and say, okay, it's not bad, we need to repair it, but this area here, it's been so long that we're gonna have to cut out this 20 by 20 area and re-roof just this one section here. You can do that. And you
Okay.
can still get a warranty on your repairs as well when you do things like that. I'm sorry, it all depends on the condition of your roof.
Okay. So the other day when we were at lunch, we were talking about a sealant and you were
Yes.
talking about a different test that you had to do with that. Can you talk about that, which roofs that would apply to?
So roof coatings. So roof coatings apply to quite a different few roofs. I am not a roof coating specialist. We do have one on staff, luckily, who is. Flat roofs obviously are the candidates for coatings. Anybody who ever says to you, "Oh, we could put a coating on the shingles," please don't do that. Please, just please don't do that. Don't paint your shingles.
So on my house, you say I should not do that,
No,
right?
no, no, don't do that. Please don't paint your shingles. I've seen videos and I just cringe.
I've seen them and I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
And there's so many different systems out there too, so many different great brands out there for roof coatings that have different applications. I mean, there's brands out there you could do a roof coating on a modified roof system or a rolled roofing. There's coatings out there you could do it on metal roofs. Obviously, you could coat TPOs and PVCs. Obviously, everything is contingent on adhesion testing. You definitely want to get somebody out there, and you want to have somebody inspect your roof to see if your roof is a proper candidate. It's got to be in.
That what does that adhesion testing look like?
So the adhesion test basically, and to make it in simple words, is they put out some coating on the roof system. They put a piece of cloth on there. It's about 1 inch wide by about a foot long with a loop at the end of it. And then they stick it on there and then put another coating on top of it. And they let it sit there for about 2, 3 days. Then they come back with a little scale and they do a pull test on it. If you have more than a pound or two of pull, then it adheres good and the roof can be coated. If the pull comes in under a pound, obviously there's no adhesion, so the roof is no longer a candidate for a coating. So alternate things are going to have to be found. Another solution is going to have to be found, or value engineer it, or something will have to be done.
And how much longer does that prolong the life of the roof if you're able to do that coating?
So again, you can get a 5, 10, 15-year warranty, but again, those warranties mean nothing if you don't maintain it.
Mhm.
I'm huge on maintenance, and I keep saying it. Maintenance is the most important. You can have a 100-year warranty on something if you don't maintain it, it doesn't matter.
Right.
It will extend the life of your roof, and in some cases, you may be able to do it more than once, depending
Okay.
on the areas you're in and what the application is. In certain areas, like in South Florida, much harder. Up here, much easier because of the codes and obviously all that.
So with South Florida, would it be coating that is an issue, or is it the salt air?
Well, in South Florida, it's just the winds, the hurricane zone, and everything
Okay.
like that. So the codes down there and the engineering and the testing is much more stringent than other areas in the country. A lot of the areas in the country, such as South Carolina, North Carolina, especially near the coast area, are adopting the Miami-Dade roofing codes and everything like that, just because they're so stringent and they do work.
So we know what they're not allowed to do. What can they do in those areas?
Well, some coatings are done. So a lot of over there is obviously everything. It's a very high wind area, especially if you're near the coast. Anytime you do any type of roof application, or roof system, you have to do what's called engineering. You have to actually hire a professional engineer to come and test that roof. You can no longer rely on a roofing company to do that because you need documentation saying that this roof passed the pull test, and yes, those fasteners can be used on this roof, or yes, that coating will stick to this metal or this type of roof system in this wind zone. Yeah, roofing is much more expensive in South Florida than it is everywhere else.
So we touched on this a little bit during our little pre-call. Let's talk about the JP Stevens TPO roofing and that fun fiasco.
Yes,
I
that
don't know
that's
as much. Explain like the timeline of when those, do you know when they were installed off the top of your head?
I believe it was in the early 2000s, late 90s when it was installed because like I said, I got into commercial roofing in probably 2017, 2018, and I was dealing with repairs already and obviously a lot of it deteriorating and they were getting old and it was been happening for a while. So I believe it was the early 2000s when the Stevens were installed and then they had time to obviously sit on the roofs and do what they did.
Can you explain what happened? Like, so it was a TPO and what was the failure?
Well, the failure was the TPO itself, the thermoplastic that they used on it was just cheap. I'll be honest with you. It was just a membrane they came out that was offering a great price. And like things that, if when they promise there's really nothing in this world ever for free or there's no true discounts. I mean, if it's the same material as the other brand, why is it discounted? What is in it? So it was just a composite that just wasn't very good and didn't withstand the elements and it just failed and it cost people millions.
What, as an industry, can we do to prevent something like that happening again?
Well, one thing is you got to ask yourself, why is this TPO cheaper than the other one? Where was it manufactured? And I'm not trying to get into the whole buy American and all that stuff, but you got to see what they're offering you.
Yeah.
Why is your 60 mil so much cheaper than their 60 mil? Because okay, labor wise, you guys you're never going to be that far off on labor because labor is what labor is nowadays. The manufacturers don't sell it cheaper to one company than the other. It's the price that it is. So how is it you're getting that TPO so cheap? Oh, okay, so you're having it shipped in from another country. Great. Well, what's the difference? Let's look into it. Let's see how it's actually made. I personally don't agree with bringing in something from another country just because it's cheaper. If it's not made good quality, why make it? I'd rather spend an extra 35 cents a square foot and know that my roof is not going to fail than sit there and save 35 cents and wonder for the next 20 years, is it going to fail?
Right.
You know,
Well, I feel like that's with any materials. And, there's
absolutely.
different standards in other countries as there are in ours. It
And
makes
in those
sense
countries, they wouldn't sell it in their own countries, but they send it over here to sell.
because we just want everything cheap, right?
Exactly. We want it big, bold, bright, and cheap, and that's what you get. You get a 20-year warranty, but guess what? Not my warranty. You got to call them over there across the other end of the world and get your warranty fixed.
Yeah, that was quite the mess. It was an interesting thing to learn about. Like,
Hmm.
why is this roof toilet paper?
Yeah.
Literally. Like, you
The
explained it
first,
earlier how it was soaking up the water and
yes.
crumbling.
The whole top layer of the plastic was basically deteriorating. You would just see the mesh, the scrim is, and it was literally, it's a fabric, so it absorbed water. And obviously, in absorbing that water, the bottom layer of that TPO just disintegrated as well because all that gunk would accumulate into the fabric in there, causing deterioration. And then now, what is insulation? It's just gonna act like a sponge and soak in all that water. And by that time, now you're not just doing a repair. You're cutting out a portion of the roof to replace the insulation because if not, your deck's going to get rusted.
Yeah.
And then we have a safety issue.
Yeah.
It was a huge problem. Luckily, I think it's pretty much almost all gone. I mean, there may be areas where it's still there and nobody can get it fixed. I'm not sure, but
Do you have any funny roofing stories to share with us?
you know, they're more scary than they are funny. I mean, one thing I always find funny is when I walk a roof with a customer, is like, and I'm walking around and I see a bullet on the roof. They freak out because I find so many of those. To me, it's up. Oh, found it. You got a bullet on your roof. There's your leak. And a lot of people
Mhm.
just, yes, you got to realize that 4th of July, what do people like to do?
Yeah. Shoot
You
guns
know,
in the air and shoot off fireworks.
yeah. And New Year's Eve, they do the same thing. They don't
And,
realize
and they
that.
gotta go somewhere. Thankfully, it's not a person.
Oh, exactly. It sounds funny when you hear, but you're like, nobody realizes that bullet goes straight up and has to come back down, and it can penetrate a roof. I've seen it go through metal roofs, and I found it on the floor inside.
Wow.
So imagine if that hits somebody, a child on the shoulder, on the top of
Yeah.
the head, God forbid, or even an adult.
Yeah.
But we find that a lot there. The one thing I always tell everybody is safety is number one on every roof. I remember I was training someone on a roof once. This was in South Florida, and we got on a metal roof, an R panel metal roof with skylights. And the first thing we do the underdeck inspection. We notice skylights. I tell them, this is skylights. We stay away from these basically. And we set up the ladder. We go on the roofs. As soon as we get on the roof, first things, those are the skylights. Stay away. Walk around them. Don't touch them. Don't go near them. You're new. Stay 3 feet away.
It's like a toddler. Stay over here. Do not touch.
Exactly. So I'm inspecting the roof. He's taking notes. I turn back. I see him, and I see him take a step, and I'm like, no! And he steps on the skylight.
Oh,
Luckily, he wasn't as big as I am. He steps, and you hear cracking and everything. He just lifted up his foot. It went through, but not all the way through. And he's like, "Oh my god! Oh my god!" I'm like, "Yes, let's go downstairs. Let's go down. Go back to the drawing board. Let's go back to the office and do some training."
let's go tell everyone what you just did.
Yes, I had to. Unfortunately, I had to do that. I'm like, no, 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 no. So I
Ooh,
mean, but when you reflect on it and you think about it, it's funny. But at the moment, you're like, no, it's not funny, and you're like,
right.
okay, it could have been so much worse.
Thank God it wasn't.
Oh, and that's why I preach safety so much. I
Yeah.
always preach it. Safety number. I don't care if you don't feel safe, don't do it.
Well, and we talked about this too, like seeing women climbing ladders to the roof in high heels and walking on the roofs in high heels. One, you could puncture your roof, but two,
Yes.
that's so unsafe. I've recently heard a woman almost bragging about it, saying, well, I got to do what I got to do. Well, if you're in facilities or property management, you better have some flat shoes under your desk.
Yes.
That was
Or in your
always my
car or
rule.
anything.
If I need to go do a long walk of a property inspection, or if I need to get on a roof or something like that, safety is first. I'm going to have some flat shoes. I don't care if it matches my outfit. I'm
Hmm.
going to be safe. And
I agree.
I actually got fussed at by a roofer for wearing loafers on a roof. I told you about that. I sent him a picture because I got the tar on my shoe. And I was like, oh, like whining about it. And then he came back, well, those aren't even roof rated shoes, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I know. I do always tell everybody, yeah, just wear the right shoes. I mean, and I've seen people on roofs and flat roofs because they think it's safe. It's flat. They're wearing loafers or leather sole shoes.
Yeah.
If you're going on a roof, take a pair of boots with you or sneakers with you. Just be safe. And I have an extra pair of boots in my truck. I keep a pair of boots with me at all times. You never know.
Yeah.
Some days I may wear sneakers, some day I may wear shoes. But if I gotta get on a roof, I got a pair of boots in my car that I will put on and I will get on that roof if I have to.
That's wise. And that should be anyone in roofing or facility management should have that.
Anybody in any type of maintenance or construction or anything that has anything
Right.
to do with buildings,
That's true. Yeah.
always be prepared to get dirty.
Yes. Do you have any other roof safety tips?
Stay away from the edge. No, always be aware of your surroundings. Always be aware of where you're standing, what's around you. Don't be on your phone if you don't have to. I know a lot of us that do inspections, we're always on our phones and we're taking pictures. Just be aware of what's around you. It could happen at any moment. I know of it happening. I know of people that it's happened to. It's not something that is, I just never want to get that call, or I don't want anybody to receive that call.
Yeah.
It's horrible just to think of somebody who's just doing their job is
Yeah.
no longer here because they were doing their job.
Yeah.
I've been with a company where that's happened, and I wasn't directly involved or knew them or anything, but it just the hear that it happened, I just don't want it. I don't ever want to hear that. So again, that's why I just be aware of where you are, even if you're on the ground. Be aware of somebody on the roof if something could fall.
And that brings me, like, if it's raining, you're not going to be on a roof. Like,
No,
don't.
if you see
And
lightning, don't set up your ladder.
that also takes me back. So, customers will call when it's raining because that's when they see their leaks, right? And they want someone right here, right now. So, what can you do in those situations to help alleviate that rainfall in their building?
In those situations, if they call me and it's leaking right now and it's raining right now, there's really not much we can do to help. We can go out there and maybe put a tarp, but tarps don't do anything. It's just it doesn't do it. It's like putting a band-aid on a wet arm. It doesn't do anything. The best thing to do is be proactive. Get
Yeah.
somebody, go look at your roof, make sure it be pre-rainy season and post-rainy season. Just go up there and take a look, see if anything that may be a problem if we get some rain here. Maybe we should have somebody look at it.
Well, unfortunately, in my situations, there are landlords that don't take care of the roofs like they should. But I'm the one getting the call. So of course I'm always like, get a big trash can, put it under it. But I've also heard of roofers almost making like a funnel on the inside to capture it. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, and they even sell these little kits that you could order online, and that's basically what it is. It's a small tarp that's just cut in a certain way that when you pull it, it's just shaped like a funnel, and it's got a small tube just coming out the middle like a funnel and goes into a bucket. You could order those on Amazon, or you probably get those. I haven't seen them at Home Depot or Lowe's, but I'm sure if you go to say Beacon Supply or ABC Supply or one of those, I know they have them as well. They do work good if you have the person who's doing knows what they're doing. Because remember, a lot of times you're kind of high up, so you got to use a step ladder. So you got to be safe, and sometimes you need two people to do it. So and it all depends on what's underneath too, because you got to remember if it's dripping on top of some computers, we got to act fast. And,
Yeah.
and yes, you can call some roofing companies. Unfortunately, emergency services cost money,
Yeah.
and it's not a little bit of money. You're talking sometimes it can be well upwards of 125 an hour, if not more, depending on the company or how many guys or what the service is. That's expensive, especially for a small business. I mean, JLL, CBRE, all those companies, that's different. A small business can't afford that, so they got to do those. And those kits are great to have because it will help you. Just don't make it, and a lot of people make it a solution.
Mm,
And they just leave it there. Oh no, sorry, I don't care about that leak because that funnel's trapping. Well, no, you're causing so much damage on your roof
the
that you don't know
building.
about.
Yeah.
And I've gone to places where I'm like, how long has this been here? So I don't know. I've been here for about 3 years. It's been there ever since I've been here.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like just because a band-aid's working right now doesn't mean it's the solution.
Yeah, like what damage is that causing behind things that you can't see?
Exactly. It's like when that, what do you remember? I don't remember back in the day when that Fix-A-Flat came out for tires. Remember, you got a flat tire, just spray this into your tire. Next time everybody was doing that, and then they go get a new tire, the rims all rusted out and rotted. So it works, but let's get it done right.
Right. Well, do you have anything else you want to input or talk about in the roofing industry? Something that facility managers should know?
You get what you pay for when it comes to roofing. Quality is the most important thing. Somebody who stands behind their work. That if I go out on your roof and I fix your roof, and then you call me a month or two later, even 6 months later, you tell me I got another leak, and I go out there and that's my work that's failing, I'm fixing it. That's my work. You're not getting charged for my work failing. It's especially if it wasn't anybody's fault and it just failed. I'm just repairing it. And a lot of times you also can call me and Alex, my roof is leaking. I've done this so many times where I go to the roof, it's not the roof. And I'll tell the customer, no, your roof is not leaking. Look on the side of the building, you got a crack. That's where the water's coming in from, or your joints, or so many different areas. And then I know I get yelled at a lot when I say the AC is leaking, but
That is my favorite excuse.
everybody said, no, that's the AC, not the
And then
roof.
the HVAC guy says, no, it's the roof.
But you know what? They never want to meet on the roof and do the test together.
Oh my gosh, I know that drives me insane. I'm like, everyone, let's meet together. Let's go ahead and start this. As soon as someone blames the other one, okay, well, let's all meet and everyone can see. And oh, that's another thing we didn't talk about, flood testing.
Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. Perfect example, we last week we were out on a site. I'm not gonna mention names of places. They had a metal roof and they had some like a wooden walkway on top of the metal roof. And they've had multiple roofers out there doing repairs. I mean, multiple roofers. So we suggested, okay, let's do a flood test before we start making repairs. And if we can't, if it's under the walkway, because nobody wanted to go the extra mile and say, oh, we'll pull up your walkway and look underneath.
Mm,
Everybody was always working around it, pouring things so it would roll down and cover everything. That's what they were with. They on the metal, they're just pouring liquid silicone and so it rolls down and covers everything. So I said, okay, let's do a flood test. So they took out the floorboards. Well, lo and behold, when we take out the floorboards, you see it's a standing seam roof. It's all rusted. There's holes everywhere.
mm,
Why perform the flood test now? Now I'm really going to flood underneath. So there's no need for a flood test now.
right.
So the thing is, if you do a proper investigation, you a lot of times you don't need a flood test. Now, if you've been out there and you've gotten someone else to go out there to help you to get a second set of eyes on it, and nobody can find a leak, then okay, then let's suggest a flood test. But
And how
let's
does
see
the
where
blood test work?
you just flood the area. So if you have a small flat roof, you got an internal drain, obviously plug up the drain and try to flood the area with water. But a lot of times you need somebody underneath. So you have to start at front. So if you got a slightly sloped roof, you have to see where the roof. So if you start on top, well, it's gonna leak because you're starting up top and you don't see where your flow. So you want to start at the bottom and you want to start flooding the area little by little from the bottom up while somebody's underneath. And hopefully once they see water come in, you can somehow detect and try to pinpoint that leak. They're great. They do work sometimes. Sometimes they cause more leaks and you're like, oh my God, we even got more leaks now. Well, good thing we did a flood test, but we kind of flooded the inside, you know?
Yeah, there's pros and cons to them for sure.
Exactly. But we do quite a few of them. And a lot of times when we do them on roofs and then after we can't find it, we stick it in the AC and it's leaking.
Shocker. I swear that's always the case.
And that's what makes it fun sometimes. The investigation, it's always something different, something new, coming up with new solutions and everything like that. And working with some of the vendors and the products out there. I mean, there's some new products out there. You'd be like, wow, these things are cool. All the things are developing and everything. So that's what's fun about the job. It's always something different. It's not just you may think a roof is a roof. No, it's not. You know, a building is not a building. Every building is not the same. Every roof is not the same. It's all different. It's all fun and it's all hot. Very hot up there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, make sure you're drinking water when you're on
Oh
the
yeah.
roof.
You definitely want to stay hydrated. Wear sunglasses. People think
Hmm.
it messes with your eyes, and wear a hat. I tell everyone wear a hat.
Well, you were just saying like how every building is different. I literally had a situation this morning where there was a pipe coming through something and we couldn't figure out where it was. And I sent a picture to another facility manager who I believe knows everything and should know everything. And I sent him a picture and said, what is this? And he was like, I do not know. That is a new one to me. And I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. Like, what is
Mhm.
this thing? And so we, sent it off for investigation to someone, but I was like, you're supposed to know everything. But we're all learning something new every day. Every building is different. And
Every
sometimes you
day.
have random pipes coming in from the side of your wall that don't make sense.
I've seen stuff on roofs where I'm like, okay, I thought I've seen it all, but this is a definitely new installation. I don't know what's going on here. I've
Yeah,
seen so yeah. And you know what really bothers? It's like fixing someone else's mistakes cost you even more. You know, and then people say, well, normally this would cost 1,500. Yeah, but normally I wouldn't have to rip all that off before I do the repair. Takes
yeah,
time. And, you know, and again, it goes back to quality of work and you get what you pay for.
right. Perfect. Anything else to wrap up today?
No, just if anybody needs any help with the roofs, they can always reach out to me.
Yes,
I'm
so
easy
you
to get
can
a hold of.
find Alex on LinkedIn. How do you spell your last name?
Leone, Leone, or you
Okay.
can email at alex.leone@roofingusa.com.
Perfect. And my email is hello@facilityfiles.com. If you have any questions about roofs or facilities, please email and I will, if I can't answer it, I'll find the perfect subject matter expert to help answer and forward that on. And I am Elizabeth Ignatowicz. I can also be found on LinkedIn. And thank you so much for coming. This was great and very informative. I feel like it really just came into the whole reason I'm having this podcast is to help teach others about different things in their buildings. And I am not a roofing expert. So thank you for being my expert today.
Oh, no problem. Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Well, you have a great day and we will talk soon.
All right. Thank you.